Hello everyone, I'm Rachel. I'm an equity consultant at Vested and I work with founders and leadership teams to help them build smart, sustainable share schemes. Today we're talking about retention in recruitment agencies and more specifically how to attract and help keep great people when your budget's feeling squeezed. It's a big challenge for recruitment agencies right now, but share schemes might just be the underused lever you've been looking for. So let's start with a bit around what you already know. The recruitment world is under pressure. Clients are negotiating hard on fees. Your best people are getting poached, and there's less cash to play with when it comes to bonuses or raises. So the real question is, how do you stay competitive when the money just isn't there? Salaries are expensive, and bonuses can be quickly forgotten. Vague promises of growth don't really mean much when there's no clear path or upside. Meanwhile, your competitors might be circling ready to offer the shiny new package. So we need to get smarter and stickier with how we retain and reward people. So here's the opportunity. What if you could give your team a stake in the business without increasing your salary spend? Share schemes allow you to reward long-term impact, not just short-term wins, and they cost the business nothing up front. Think of it as giving your team a slice of the pie once the pie grows. Recruiters are already wired for performance-based rewards. You get commission culture, so equity fits. It also creates an ownership mindset, which helps reduce churn and makes it feel like you're all growing the business together. We call that the ownership effect because once people have skin in the game, it changes their relationship with the business. They feel a part of it, not just an employee. So there are loads of different ways that you can incentivize your team. The most common way is the EMI share scheme. So there are different people that you can reward. Most of you probably just have UK-based employees, but if you work with freelancers or contractors, even fractionals or non-execs, there are different ways to incentivize them with equity as well. So the EMI share scheme is the most popular. So we're going to spend a bit of time going through that. There are also unapproved options for people outside of the UK or those that are not employees, and the same applies for growth shares. CSOPs are similar to EMI options, but they're typically for larger companies, so I'm not going to go into that right now. So EMI options. So this is a brilliant way of incentivizing your team by giving them the right, so they can earn the right to equity over time. There are some basic eligibility criteria. So you, and I imagine most of you are UK companies, fewer than 250 employees, and not majority owned by a third party. So if you own the company yourself, totally fine. Also, if there are some other investors, but it can't be a different company that owns the business, so a holding structure. And recruitment agencies are totally fine in terms of sector. Your employees need to work a minimum of 25 hours a week in the business or 75% of their time. So if, for example, somebody worked 3 days a week with you, but that was their only job, they would also be eligible for the EMI scheme. Now, one of the nice tax benefits around this is that they don't need to pay any income tax. The only tax they pay is capital gains when they sell their shares if they've had them for at least 2 years. So this is a government-backed share scheme, and as part of it, we need to do a valuation. Now, the valuation for this is quite different to a valuation for investment or for exit, for example. The main aim of this valuation is to set the price at today's value that the team are going to pay for their shares at some point in the future. Here is a worked example of the potential benefits to a team member. So we would agree that, for example, they are buying the shares at £1, and if they sell them for £10 in a few years' time, they would make £9, and on that they pay their capital gains. And there are also tax benefits for you as the business, where you can offset that gain against your corporation tax. With EMI schemes, there's loads of flexibility in terms of how you structure them. So the most common way is to base it on time, which is great if you want to use the scheme as a way of retaining your team. But you can also tie in KPIs, for example, if you also wanted to incentivize performance. At Vested as a team, we can help you with this. We have a team of expert share scheme consultants on hand to just advise you what is the best route to go down. I think one of the main things is around alignment. So setting up any share scheme in line with your business goals. So if you are looking to sell the company in a few years' time, you could align it with that. If you're looking to hit certain revenue goals, you can align it with that. So the important thing is set up the share scheme to be motivating for your team, but also to be in line with whatever the business plan is. One of the alternatives to EMI is unapproved options. So I'm not going to go into this in loads of detail, but it works in a similar way. You need to actually just taking a step back for a minute. You would also need to decide as a business what percentage of your company's equity you're happy to put into whichever share scheme route you decide to go down. The average is around 10 to 15%. So what you would typically do is create a share option pool, which ring fences that amount for your team, and then you grant them to your team in the form of share options. So we've been through the EMI scheme. The unapproved options have a different tax point, as you can see on this slide here. So rather than paying only capital gains, the team have to pay income tax when they buy them, but there are no restrictions. So you can grant them to people who are not employees or also to people based outside of the UK. Growth shares are quite an interesting construct. So these are actual shares that are granted to the team. So a lot of people find growth shares a lot more easier to understand. And it's also quite engaging for the team because they get the shares up front, but these are conditional shares. So you're not just giving people equity and therefore taking on the risk as the business. You're incentivizing the team by saying, here are some growth shares. And as long as you're here with the business for, say, 4 years, or as long as you hit these KPIs over the next however many years, we will make these shares unconditional. But if you leave before or you don't hit your targets, we have the right to cancel some or all of them. So from that ownership effect and that sense of being part of the company, which is really key for retention, growth shares can be really interesting. So there are some changes you need to make to your articles, which we can help you with. Same with evaluation. But actually, if, for example, you've grown the company to be worth, say, £1 million, it means that you as the current founder ring fence all of that value, and your team are incentivized to help grow the business from that point because they will share in the future growth. So this is a really nice way to retain your team and help grow the company. I've got some beautiful slides here with how it works. So the current value plus a small premium becomes what's known as the hurdle. So anything below the hurdle is what's ring fence for you, and anything above the hurdle is what's shared in by your team. So these do get filed with Companies House. The team do get share certificates. They don't need to pay the hurdle price, so there's a very nominal amount that they would pay for these shares. So this growth shares, they're not that known about. They're becoming increasingly popular, but these can be a brilliant way for recruitment agencies to really help retain their teams. A lot of people worry about giving up control, but that's not necessarily the case, because often we will sorry, I've just had a question come in. Let me just see what that one is. Did the new rates of capital gains tax apply? Yes, this does apply to all of the share schemes. So used to be 10% capital gains. It's now gone up to 18%, and it's going up again to 24% as of April 2026. But that's still less than income tax. So going back to the control here, you can still keep all of the control in the company. Typically, a new share class would be created that doesn't give your team any control, but might give them dividends at your discretion if you want to. So the important thing is that you're sharing the upside, not the reins. So you do keep control. Let me just go on to our next one. So when to consider a share scheme. So if you're hiring but you can't compete on salary, a share scheme is a really nice differentiator. And actually, I speak to companies, SMEs, day in, day out, and I always ask how people heard about share schemes. And often it's from their team members or people that they're currently talking to about recruitment. So I would say individuals are more savvy about it, and equity is definitely something that a lot of people are looking for in a business. So great to consider a share scheme if you want to retain your top billers, if you're building a leadership team, also if you're looking at an exit or an MBO, and scaling long term. If you take nothing away with you after this brief session, just remember that smart hiring means smart incentives. So share schemes can stretch your budget, boost loyalty, increase retention, and align everyone around the growth of the business. The main thing is to make sure that any share scheme you set up is easy to understand, is not overly complicated, and is motivating for the team. That's the end of my slides, but I can see there's a couple of questions here. So let me just have a look. Can you set up more than one scheme? So yes. So if, for example, you wanted to incentivize both an employee and also a consultant, you can run an EMI scheme and a growth share scheme in parallel on the platform. I think the other thing to remember is that share schemes don't have to be complicated. Some people are really scared about setting them up. It is quite a niche area. It does fall between accountancy and law. At Vested, we're not lawyers or accountants, we're share scheme specialists. We've been doing this for over 10 years. We understand best practice. We work with over 3,000 different companies. And we do work with quite a lot of recruitment agencies. So we have a really good idea of how other companies are setting up share schemes in your sector. Thank you. Another question come in. What if someone leaves really early after joining our agency? Do they take a chunk of equity with them? Excellent question. So it's really important, and you can't set up a share scheme without good and bad leaver terms. So often there is what's known as a cliff period, which is a bit like a probation period. So a 6-month or 12-month cliff is very standard when you're setting up an agreement. So it means that if somebody leaves the company within the first 6 or 12 months, they won't leave with anything. But then you also do have good and bad leaver scenarios where you define what happens if somebody is a bad leaver. So typically that would be gross misconduct and they would leave with nothing. So you would any unvested shares would go back into the pool to be redistributed. Or if somebody is a good leaver, again, you have different good and bad leaver terms that you can put in. So it might be that somebody has the right to keep any equity that they've earned. And if you do sell the business in the future, they can benefit, but they don't become a shareholder in the meantime. So it's really important to think really clearly about what you want to happen in each scenario. And also, as a team of share scheme specialists, we are also here to ensure that we can answer any questions that you have, and also to make sure that you consider everything that you need to when you are setting up a share scheme. Anyone have any more questions? If you do, please feel free to put them in the chat. Oh, thank you. Another last minute one just come in. What's a normal vesting schedule? Um, so the most standard vesting schedule is, I would say, 1 year cliff with a 4 year vesting period. So time-based is a lot more common than KPI driven. Although, as I mentioned, you can do a combination. So if you want to incentivize retention and performance, you might consider giving somebody two agreements. So one is just based on time. So as long as you're with the agency and you're still performing and you're with us, you can earn equity over time. And another one might be around either company-wide or personal KPIs. Um, but again, we've got some more information around what is more typical with recruitment agencies. And actually, because, as I mentioned at the start, you are more used to this whole commission structure and the performance side of things, I would say recruitment agencies over other types of, over other sectors do often have more performance-based KPIs than is usual in other ones. We've got loads more free information on the website. So if you go to vested.com, vestd.com, there's a resource centre with loads of guides on there. So Equity Fundamentals is a great guide to download. Also the EMI guide and the Growth Shares guide. So there's loads of free content there. And if you would like to have a chat with me or one of my colleagues at Vested, there's fairly obvious calls to action throughout the website as to where you can book a call. So please do. It's a completely free conversation if you're just equity curious or if you've got a specific need. Really happy to chat more with you about it. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to this. Hopefully it's been useful for you and look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.